Imagine pouring your heart and soul into building a career you love, only to have your closest friends dismiss your dreams, convinced you'd regret every decision. Then, just a few short months later, they're watching you on national television, accepting a prestigious award. Karma doesn't always come quickly, but when it does, it's absolutely perfect. This story taught me the true meaning of trusting your gut, silencing the doubters, and creating your own version of success, even when no one else believes in you. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. My name is Eleanor Vance, and at 30 years old, I was a senior marketing manager at a bustling tech firm in San Francisco. On paper, it was the dream job: competitive salary, good benefits, and a clear path for advancement. Yet every morning, the commute felt heavier, the office air thicker. I was a square peg in a round hole, constantly stifling my true passions and creative instincts to fit into a corporate mold that was slowly but surely suffocating me. My real dream wasn't about climbing the corporate ladder, it was about building something from the ground up, something that genuinely made a difference. I wanted to launch EcoBloom, a sustainable lifestyle brand focused on eco-friendly home and garden products. It was a vision born from years of personal passion, countless hours of research, and a deep-seated desire to contribute positively to the planet. My closest friends, however, saw it differently. To them, my job at Innovate Solutions was the epitome of success, the secure path. They were all in similar corporate roles, their lives neatly structured around promotions, bonuses, and company perks. My desire to leave felt like an alien concept, a reckless gamble they couldn't comprehend. There was Olivia, my best friend since college, who was a high-powered consultant. "Eleanor," she'd say over our weekly brunch, "are you crazy? You have a fantastic position, a secure future. EcoBloom? That's a hobby, not a career. You'll regret giving up everything you've worked for." Then there was Ben, who worked in finance and was always quick with a pragmatic, often blunt assessment. "Look, I get being passionate," he'd chime in. "But a startup in eco-friendly spatulas? That's a huge risk. The market is saturated and most small businesses fail. You'll be back begging for an entry-level job in 6 months." Even Chloe, who was usually more supportive, had her doubts. "It's just so much uncertainty, Elle. What about your savings? Your apartment? Are you really prepared to sacrifice all of that for a maybe?" Their words, though well-intentioned, felt like tiny darts, each one chipping away at my resolve. They weren't malicious, just deeply ingrained in a belief system that valued security and traditional success over passion and purpose. They saw my ambition as naive, my optimism as a flaw. The pressure mounted. Every conversation seemed to circle back to my rash decision. Dinner parties became informal interrogations about my business plan, followed by unsolicited advice on managing expectations and having a backup plan. My enthusiasm for EcoBloom was often met with polite nods, sometimes even pitying glances, followed by anecdotes about failed startups and cautionary tales of friends who had taken similar leaps and landed flat on their faces. It wasn't just their words. It was the unspoken judgment, the subtle shift in their demeanor that suggested they saw me as foolish, perhaps even irresponsible. They were convinced I was making the biggest mistake of my life, throwing away a perfectly good career for a pipe dream. I found myself constantly defending my choices, justifying my vision, and battling a growing sense of isolation. It was as if their collective doubt was a heavy blanket, threatening to smother the flickering flame of my entrepreneurial spirit. Despite their resistance, the idea of EcoBloom burned brighter with each passing day. I'd spend evenings and weekends meticulously crafting my business plan, researching sustainable suppliers, and sketching out product designs. The thought of bringing something meaningful into the world, something that aligned with my values, was a powerful counter to their skepticism. But their voices, tinged with concern and thinly veiled warnings, echoed in my mind, making the leap feel even more terrifying. The day I officially resigned from Innovate Solutions was a blur of nervous excitement and a profound sense of liberation. My friends, of course, reacted with a mixture of shock and thinly veiled concern. Olivia called immediately. "Eleanor, are you absolutely sure about this? It's not too late to change your mind. They'd probably take you back." Ben sent a terse text. "Good luck. You'll need it." Chloe offered a sympathetic, "I hope you know what you're doing." Their reactions solidified my resolve. This wasn't just about starting a business anymore. It was about proving them wrong, and more importantly, proving to myself that my convictions were stronger than their collective doubt. The first 6 months of building EcoBloom were a relentless uphill battle, a testament to the adage that entrepreneurship isn't for the faint of heart. My tiny San Francisco apartment, once a sanctuary, transformed into a makeshift office, warehouse, and production studio. Every spare inch was filled with product samples, shipping boxes, and my constantly expanding collection of research notes. The glamorous image of a tech startup CEO was miles away from my reality of late-night packaging, early morning trips to the post office, and endless hours hunched over my laptop, meticulously managing inventory and trying to troubleshoot website glitches. My social life, once vibrant, dwindled to almost nothing. My friends continued their corporate lives, their weekends filled with trendy brunches and lavish vacations, while mine were consumed by supplier negotiations and product photography. When we did manage to connect, the conversations felt strained. They'd ask, "How's EcoBloom going?" with a tone that implied they expected the answer to be terrible. I'd offer a cautiously optimistic update, highlighting small victories, a positive customer review, a new wholesale inquiry, but their expressions often remained unconvinced, sometimes even pitying. It was as if they were waiting for me to admit defeat, to concede that they had been right all along. The financial strain was immense. My carefully saved emergency fund began to dwindle faster than anticipated. There were days I'd stare at my bank balance, a knot of anxiety, tightening in my stomach, wondering if I had made a terrible mistake. The endless rejections from potential investors were particularly demoralizing. "Sustainable home goods? The market is too niche," one venture capitalist scoffed. "No proven track record," another stated bluntly. Each rejection was a fresh wave of self-doubt, a confirmation of my friends' initial warnings. There were moments, late at night, fueled by lukewarm coffee and the silence of my tiny apartment, when I questioned everything. Was I truly naive? Was I sacrificing stability for a pipe dream? The loneliness of entrepreneurship, especially when your closest circle doesn't fully understand or support your path, can be crushing. My parents, bless their hearts, were supportive in their own quiet way, offering emotional encouragement and small, unexpected checks that always arrived just when I needed them most. But they couldn't fill the void left by my friends' skepticism. I longed for someone to truly believe in my vision, to see beyond the immediate struggles and recognize the potential. Despite the mounting challenges, I clung to the core belief that EcoBloom was more than just a business, it was a mission. I believed in the products, in the positive impact they could have, and in the growing demand for sustainable alternatives. I found solace and strength in the small community of eco-conscious entrepreneurs I connected with online. Their shared struggles and triumphs became a lifeline, a reminder that I wasn't alone in this journey. I started attending local farmers markets, selling my products directly to customers. The genuine enthusiasm and positive feedback from these early adopters were like a balm to my weary soul. Their appreciation for EcoBloom's mission and quality reignited my passion and pushed me forward. Every sale, no matter how small, was a victory, a validation that I was on the right track. My friends, however, remained largely detached from this side of my life. They saw the grind, but not the profound sense of purpose that fueled it. They saw the financial risks, but not the immense satisfaction of building something authentic from the ground up. I knew they cared about me, but their inability to truly support my unconventional path created an invisible wall between us. The silence from them wasn't malicious, but it underscored the chasm between our differing definitions of success. Just as I was starting to feel truly exhausted, both mentally and financially, a small glimmer of hope appeared on the horizon. An online article, buried deep within a niche sustainability blog, mentioned EcoBloom as a promising new brand. It was a tiny blip on the radar, but it caught the attention of Serafina Dubois, a renowned sustainable lifestyle influencer with a massive following. Serafina reached out, expressing genuine interest in EcoBloom's mission and products. Her message was a breath of fresh air, a stark contrast to the polite skepticism I had become accustomed to. She resonated deeply with my vision of making sustainable living accessible and stylish, and she saw the potential in my meticulously crafted, earth-friendly products. Serafina's endorsement was like a lightning bolt. Her glowing review, shared across her social media platforms, sparked an immediate and unprecedented surge in traffic to EcoBloom's website. Orders started pouring in, overwhelming my small-scale production setup, but filling me with an exhilarating sense of validation. For the first time, the demand was outstripping my supply, a problem I was thrilled to have. I worked around the clock, fueled by adrenaline and the sheer joy of seeing EcoBloom finally take flight. This sudden influx of business allowed me to make crucial investments, upgrading my production equipment, hiring a small team of part-time assistants, and finally, moving EcoBloom operations out of my living room and into a small, dedicated workshop space. It was a tangible sign of progress, a physical manifestation of my hard work and perseverance. As EcoBloom's visibility grew, so did the inquiries from various media outlets and industry organizations. Suddenly, my story was becoming compelling. My journey from a secure corporate job to a flourishing sustainable brand resonated with a wider audience hungry for narratives of purpose-driven entrepreneurship. I started receiving invitations to speak at local business events, participate in panel discussions on sustainability, and even be featured in online publications. Each opportunity was a chance to share EcoBloom's mission, to inspire others, and to slowly, steadily build the brand's reputation. My friends, still entrenched in their corporate worlds, were largely unaware of this shift. My social media presence was deliberately focused on EcoBloom, not my personal life, and I rarely initiated conversations about my burgeoning success, wary of their potential reactions. I didn't want to gloat, nor did I want to invite more skepticism. I was focused on building, not on seeking their approval. Then came the email that changed everything. An invitation to be nominated for the prestigious Green Visionary Award, an annual accolade recognizing leaders in sustainable innovation. It was an honor beyond anything I had imagined, a national recognition of EcoBloom's impact and potential. The nomination process was rigorous, requiring detailed applications, financial disclosures, and testimonials. I poured myself into it, knowing that even a nomination was a significant milestone. The awards ceremony was to be a highly publicized event, broadcast nationally, attended by industry leaders, environmental advocates, and media representatives. It was a grand stage, far removed from the quiet skepticism of my friends. As the date approached, a different kind of anxiety began to set in. This wasn't about public speaking or potential failure. It was about the inevitable moment my friends would learn of my success, not through my words, but through a very public display. Would they finally see? Would they understand? Or would their deeply ingrained skepticism remain, even in the face of undeniable achievement? I wasn't sure, but I knew one thing. I had followed my own path, and that, in itself, was a victory. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The days leading up to the Green Visionary Awards felt surreal. I spent hours preparing my acceptance speech, wanting it to be authentic, heartfelt, and a true reflection of EcoBloom's journey and mission. I chose a dress that was elegant yet understated, echoing the sustainable ethos of my brand. A beautiful piece from an independent designer who specialized in upcycled fabrics. Every detail was carefully considered, not for vanity, but to represent the integrity and values I had poured into EcoBloom. My small team, now comprised of 3 dedicated individuals, was buzzing with excitement. They had been instrumental in scaling up production and handling the surge in orders, and their belief in EcoBloom, and in me, was unwavering. They were my true champions, celebrating every small victory alongside me. The award ceremony itself was held at a magnificent convention center in Los Angeles, a glittering affair with flashing cameras, esteemed guests, and a palpable air of anticipation. As I walked the red carpet, I felt a strange mix of exhilaration and calm. This was it, the culmination of years of hard work, self-doubt, and relentless perseverance. I saw familiar faces from the sustainable industry, some of whom I now considered mentors or collaborators. They offered smiles and nods of encouragement, a comforting reminder that I was now part of a community that truly understood and valued my work. The main hall was enormous, filled with circular tables draped in white linen, each adorned with elegant floral arrangements. A massive stage, bathed in soft green light, dominated the front of the room. The energy was electric, a stark contrast to the quiet solitude of my early days, building EcoBloom from my apartment. I found my assigned table, positioned perfectly to offer a clear view of the stage. My small team was there, beaming, and Serafina Dubois, who had also been nominated for a different award, was seated nearby. Her presence was a comforting anchor in the sea of unfamiliar faces. We exchanged excited whispers, and she gave my hand a reassuring squeeze. "You've got this, Eleanor," she murmured, her eyes sparkling. Throughout the dinner, montages played on large screens, showcasing the work of the nominees in various categories. When EcoBloom appeared on screen, a short video highlighting our sustainable practices and the impact of our products, a wave of pride washed over me. It was humbling to see my passion project, born from late nights and sheer determination, presented on such a grand scale. I watched, mesmerized, as clips of our unique, eco-friendly home goods flashed across the screen, interspersed with testimonials from satisfied customers and environmental experts. This wasn't just about recognition. It was about amplifying EcoBloom's message to a wider audience, about proving that sustainable businesses could thrive. As the ceremony progressed, the tension in the room grew with each announced winner. When it came time for the Green Visionary Award, the announcer's voice boomed through the hall, listing the achievements of the nominees. My heart pounded in my chest, a rhythmic drum against my ribs. And then, I heard it. My name. And the Green Visionary Award goes to Eleanor Vance, founder of EcoBloom. A collective gasp, then a roar of applause erupted. I felt a rush of adrenaline, a sudden lightness, as I rose from my seat. It was a moment I had dreamt of, but never truly believed would happen. My team cheered, Serafina clapped enthusiastically, and a tear slipped down my cheek as I made my way to the stage. The spotlights were blinding, the applause deafening, but all I could focus on was the immense gratitude swelling within me. As I accepted the elegant glass trophy, its polished surface reflecting the stage lights, I clutched it tightly, feeling the weight of not just the award, but the journey it represented. Standing at the podium, looking out at the sea of faces, I took a deep breath. "Thank you," I began, my voice clear despite the emotion welling within me. "This award isn't just for me. It's for everyone who believes that business can be a force for good. It's for the planet, for the future, and for every small step we take towards a more sustainable world. I spoke from the heart, sharing EcoBloom's origin story, the challenges we faced, and the unwavering belief that fueled our mission. I spoke about the initial skepticism I encountered, the well-meaning but ultimately discouraging advice from friends who couldn't see beyond the traditional definitions of success. I didn't name names, but the words were a quiet acknowledgement of my journey, a testament to standing firm in my convictions. As I spoke, the camera panned across the audience, capturing faces of admiration and inspiration. Little did I know, at that very moment, hundreds of miles away, my friends were watching. The national broadcast of the Green Visionary Awards had inadvertently become the stage for a truth I hadn't yet shared with them, a public unveiling of the success they had doubted so profoundly. The irony was palpable. Their skepticism had fueled my fire, and now that fire was illuminating me on a national platform. The phone call from Olivia came the morning after the awards ceremony. I was still basking in the glow of the previous night, nursing a much-needed cup of coffee and scrolling through congratulatory messages. Her voice, usually so composed, was laced with a mix of shock and something I couldn't quite place. Was it pride, or perhaps a hint of embarrassment? "Eleanor," she started, her voice a little breathless, "I saw you on TV last night. The Green Visionary Award. That's incredible. We were all watching." "We?" I asked, a slight edge in my voice. I hadn't intentionally kept my success a secret, but their previous dismissiveness had certainly made me less inclined to broadcast every milestone. "Yes, Ben and Chloe and I," she confirmed. "We had our usual Friday night gathering, and it came on during the news. We were stunned." "Eleanor, why didn't you tell us you were nominated? Or that EcoBloom was this big?" I took a slow sip of my coffee. "I tried to talk about EcoBloom for months, Olivia, about the work I was doing, the challenges, the small wins. But every conversation always ended with me defending my choices, or being told I'd regret quitting my job. Honestly, after a while, it just felt easier to focus on building the business than trying to convince you all it was worth it." A beat of silence. "You're right," she finally admitted, her voice softer. We were wrong. We genuinely thought we were looking out for you, protecting you from a mistake. We didn't see it, Eleanor. We really didn't see what you were building." The apology, though overdue, felt sincere. It wasn't the kind of vindication I had sought, but it was a step. Over the next few days, I received similar calls and messages from Ben and Chloe, each a variation of shock, apology, and newfound admiration. They all wanted to catch up and hear everything. I agreed to meet them for dinner the following week, choosing a quiet, unpretentious restaurant near my apartment. I wanted the focus to be on our conversation, not on making a statement about my newfound status. Walking into the restaurant, I felt a familiar pang of apprehension mixed with curiosity. This was the moment of reckoning, the first time we'd all be together since the awards. Olivia, Ben, and Chloe were already seated, and their expressions as I approached were a fascinating blend of awe and slight discomfort. They looked at me differently now, not as the ambitious but seemingly misguided friend, but as Eleanor Vance, the Green Visionary Award winner. The dynamic had irrevocably shifted. The conversation, initially, was stiff. They showered me with congratulations, asking about the award ceremony, the media attention, and details about EcoBloom's operations that they had previously dismissed. They were genuinely curious now, their questions reflecting a sudden appreciation for the complexity and scale of what I had achieved. It was jarring to hear them speak with such reverence about the risky venture they had once scoffed at. Ben, ever the pragmatist, was particularly fascinated by the financial growth and the investor interest, his eyes widening as I casually mentioned recent funding rounds. Chloe, who had always been the most empathetic, seemed genuinely regretful, constantly apologizing for their narrow-mindedness. As the evening wore on, the initial awkwardness began to dissipate, replaced by a tentative attempt at genuine connection. They admitted their own frustrations with their corporate jobs, the daily grind, and the feeling of being unfulfilled, a stark contrast to the purpose-driven life I was now living. It was clear that my success had not only made them reevaluate their perception of me, but also their own choices and priorities. It wasn't about gloating, but about acknowledging the unspoken truth between us. For years, I had listened to their wisdom, feeling smaller and more uncertain with each piece of well-meaning advice. Now, they were the ones listening, a subtle but powerful shift in our dynamic. They weren't just asking about EcoBloom anymore. They were asking about my journey, my mindset, and what it truly felt like to pursue a dream against all odds. It was a conversation I had longed to have for so long, and while it was difficult, it was also liberating. The dinner marked a turning point in my friendships, though not without its lingering complexities. While the immediate shock and awe had subsided, a new dynamic emerged. Olivia, ever the strategist, began to see EcoBloom as a case study, a model for how passion could translate into profit. She'd ask detailed questions about my supply chain, my marketing strategy, and my approach to scaling. It was a new form of engagement, more intellectual than emotional, but at least it was engagement. She even offered to connect me with some of her firm's clients who were exploring sustainable initiatives, a gesture that, while professional, was a clear sign of her newfound respect. Ben, predictably, was most interested in the financial aspects. He wanted to know about my valuation, my profit margins, and my growth projections. He started sending me articles about other successful eco-startups, his previous skepticism replaced by an almost competitive enthusiasm. He even admitted, with a rare hint of vulnerability, that he was tired of chasing quarterly bonuses in a job that didn't ignite his passion. He began to pick my brain about early-stage investing and alternative career paths, something he would have scoffed at just a year prior. It was clear that my success had forced him to reconsider his own definition of secure. Chloe, however, was the most profoundly affected. She expressed genuine regret for her initial dismissiveness, acknowledging how much her own insecurities and societal pressures had colored her judgment. She started volunteering at local environmental organizations, driven by a desire to align her actions with her values, a path she admitted I had inspired. She became EcoBloom's most vocal cheerleader among her wider circle, actively promoting our products and mission. Our conversations deepened, moving beyond surface-level updates to a more honest discussion about dreams, fears, and the courage it takes to pursue an unconventional path. There was a raw honesty in her vulnerability that helped bridge the gap that had formed between us. She even shared her own burgeoning dreams of starting a small, ethical jewelry brand, a venture I eagerly encouraged. Despite these positive shifts, an unspoken tension sometimes lingered. There were moments when I caught a flicker of envy in their eyes, particularly when I talked about the freedom and fulfillment my work brought me, starkly contrasting their own corporate constraints. It was subtle, but it was there, a reminder of the different roads we had taken. I also found myself occasionally guarded, wary of slipping back into the old dynamic where my ambitions were questioned. It was a delicate dance of rebuilding trust and navigating the new landscape of our friendships, one where I was no longer the one needing validation, but the one who had, through sheer force of will, validated myself. I understood their perspective. They had been operating within a framework they believed was best for me, based on their own experiences and fears. But it didn't negate the sting of their initial doubt. Over time, however, these moments became less frequent. We began to find new common ground, not just in shared memories, but in a mutual respect for each other's journeys, however different they might be. We started meeting for dinner again, but now the conversations were richer, more open, and less about judgment, and more about genuine curiosity and support. They celebrated EcoBloom's subsequent milestones with genuine excitement. Our expansion into new product lines, our growing team, and especially when EcoBloom received B Corp certification, a rigorous standard for social and environmental performance. Their pride felt real, earned through their willingness to acknowledge their past mistakes and embrace a new understanding of success. As EcoBloom continued to flourish, its success had a ripple effect, not just on my friendships, but on my entire outlook on life. The financial security I had once craved, and which my friends had so strongly emphasized, was now a reality, but it felt secondary to the immense satisfaction of building something meaningful. I was no longer driven by external validation or the need to prove a point. My motivation stemmed from a deep sense of purpose and the positive impact EcoBloom was making on the world. This newfound inner peace allowed me to approach all my relationships with more grace and less defensiveness. My journey also seemed to inspire others, not just my friends, but a wider circle of acquaintances and even strangers who reached out after hearing my story. People confided in me about their own unfulfilled dreams, their fears of leaving secure jobs, and their desire to pursue something more aligned with their values. I found myself offering advice, not as a guru, but as someone who had walked that path, sharing the lessons I'd learned about resilience, self-belief, and the importance of trusting your own intuition. It was incredibly rewarding to see how my story could empower others to take their own calculated risks and embark on their unique entrepreneurial journeys. One of the most unexpected developments was the renewed connection with my family. My parents, who had always been supportive but perhaps a little mystified by my corporate career, now beamed with pride. They subscribed to every environmental magazine and newspaper that mentioned EcoBloom, clipping out articles and proudly showing them to their friends. My dad, a retired engineer, even started offering unsolicited but often helpful advice on supply chain logistics and manufacturing processes. My mom, a talented gardener, became my personal product tester, offering valuable feedback on new designs. Their engagement felt different, more genuine, born from a place of understanding rather than just parental obligation. It was a beautiful evolution of our relationship, built on shared purpose and mutual respect. The irony of it all was that the very things my friends had warned me against, the uncertainty, the financial risk, the unconventional path, were precisely what led to my greatest fulfillment. The awards, the recognition, and the financial success were wonderful, but the true prize was the profound sense of alignment I felt between my work and my values. I had created a life that truly reflected who I was, without compromise. The difficult conversations, the periods of isolation, and the relentless hard work had all been necessary steps in shedding the expectations of others and embracing my authentic self. A year after the Green Visionary Awards, EcoBloom had truly blossomed. We had expanded our product line to include sustainable gardening tools and seeds, opened a small flagship store in a vibrant eco-conscious neighborhood, and secured major distribution deals that put our products on shelves across the country. Our team had grown to over 30 dedicated employees, all passionate about our mission. We were even exploring international markets, with inquiries coming in from Europe and Australia. The dream that had once seemed impossible was now a thriving reality. My friendships with Olivia, Ben, and Chloe had settled into a new, more authentic rhythm. They were still my closest confidants, but the conversations had shifted from me seeking their approval to a mutual exchange of ideas and support. Olivia, inspired by my journey, had started her own consulting side hustle, focusing on sustainability for corporate clients. Ben, after much deliberation, had left his finance job and was exploring impact investing, a field where he could align his financial acumen with his growing desire for social good, and Chloe, true to her word, had launched her ethical jewelry brand, a beautiful collection crafted from recycled materials, and EcoBloom was one of her first wholesale clients. We celebrated our evolving paths with a special dinner, a low-key affair at my apartment, where the very first EcoBloom products had been crafted. The air was filled with laughter and genuine camaraderie, free from any lingering tension or unspoken regrets. We reminisced about the early days, about their warnings and my unwavering belief. They openly admitted their initial short-sightedness, and I acknowledged the fear and uncertainty that had driven me to push through their doubts. It was a moment of collective understanding and shared growth. As the evening wound down, Olivia raised a toast. "To Eleanor," she said, her voice filled with warmth, "who showed us that true success isn't just about what you achieve, but how you achieve it. And to second chances, and the courage to find your own bloom." We clinked glasses, a symbol of our strengthened bond and the journey we had all, in our own ways, embarked upon. My friends who had once watched me walk away from a safe job with concern were now watching me lead a thriving enterprise, and more importantly, living a life of purpose and passion. They had witnessed the twist in my story, and in doing so, had found the courage to consider their own. Eleanor's journey teaches us that sometimes the greatest leaps of faith are taken when others doubt us most. It's about trusting your instincts, building your own version of success, and allowing your passion to be your compass, even when the path is uncertain. What do you think of Eleanor's story? Have you ever had to stand up to friends or family who questioned your dreams? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more tales of courage, transformation, and finding your own path to success. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. Thank you for watching, and remember, your unique journey is your greatest strength.